everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today I want to play around with a technique that I've done many times but in a slightly different way. Today we are going to play around with some deep saturated jewel tone colors, doing some low immersion in a steam pan. But instead of starting while the pan is hot with some acid already in there, I want to try starting cool with no acid and see if that helps with some of the color penetration. I mean, this should definitely help with the color penetration, but this is not something that I specifically have done before. I don't think. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I have a lot of older dye stocks in some colors I think it would be fun to play with today. The colors that I pulled are 1% stock solutions of Dharma Radioactive, Avocado, Dharma Electric Violet, Frozen, a combination of deep magenta and sapphire blue, and silver gray, which I don't think I'll use, but I might have it just to shift tones. I've also pulled 1% stock solutions of Jacquard Aztec Gold and Jacquard Violet. As for the color mixing, I grabbed some cups and started mixing by feel, checking the colors every once in a while, but I really wasn't measuring as much as trying to go for the tones that I think I wanted. And if I needed them, I went and I pulled from some of the other colors that I had in my stash. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is to show that you can create other colors, even starting with pre-mixed colors that you might already have on hand. I have access to many acid dye colors, and I could have gone directly into the powders that I had to mix new stocks. But I'm using remnants for a couple of reasons. One, the storage space that I have for dye stocks under my sink is full, and I have a lot of colors that are approaching empty. And also, the reality of homeschooling during the pandemic means that my young children are underfoot a lot more, and so it makes me want to play around with dyes already in liquid form more than bring everything out to play with powders. The goal for today is to achieve some kind of maybe a bluish green, a bluish purple, and then a pinkish purple, and well, we'll see where we end up. When I started mixing these colors, I did not add additional liquid into my jars, and that is because I want to have an idea of how much dye total I have in each of these colors. Since we want deep saturated jewel tones and I'm planning to dye 300 grams of yarn, I'm probably going to want around 600 to 1 liter of dye total, giving us around like a 2 to 3% DOS, or depth of shade, which means that 2 to 3 grams, maybe even more, of dye per 100 grams of yarn. And since these are 1% stock solutions, they were mixed with 1 gram of dye per 100 milliliters. This is giving me a ballpark when it comes to how much color I want to mix of the at least 3 colors that I'm mixing for today. Okay, we mixed 4 colors, and I would say we have between about 180 and 250 milliliters of each color. And so we've got a deep pink, a deep purple, a deep blue that we created by mixing Frozen, which is more of a bright blue, with some violet, which I thought is really cool. And then a more teal green, which is avocado, and so this might have some brown shifts to it. But hey, it'll look like gemstones, so I think that that will be really, really lovely together. Now I want to add more liquid, because since we're going to be effectively doing like a hand-painted low immersion type thing, I want more volume in here so that way I can help the colors spread out more, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and add, well, let's start with a half a cup of water to each to dilute it. But frequently when I am mixing dyes, I will start with some water and then add colors to it. And today it's really the reverse. And I think that that helped. It really helped me see, okay, this is approximately how much I'm adding. And I just mixed a little bit of colors together, checking them on paper towels periodically until I got the relative hues that I wanted. Now the downside with doing things this way is that, well, I don't have a recipe for these colors. So therefore, mixing up more of the exact same color will be a lot harder. And so that is the downside to dyeing by feel like this. But nevertheless, I'm really excited. Since we're using commercial acid dyes today, everything is dedicated for dye. It's not used for food. But if you'd like to learn more about some of my favorite tools and equipment that I'm using, I have some affiliate links in the video description. And I have a blog post where I go into all of my favorite pots and pans and the exact ones that I purchased. Please note, however, that occasionally websites like Amazon will change the listing. So if what the link actually goes to is not what I said that it should be, please just double check the description of the item before you make a purchase. Amazon, I'm looking at you. In this catering steam pan, I'm gonna add 300 grams of soft yarn. I pre-soaked this yarn in just some plain tap water, and I'm removing a lot of the liquid, but I could remove more. I've not added any additional liquid in here yet. I think I probably will add some, but I want to be able to control how much is there. The yarn is Knit Picks Stroll Fingering Weight yarn. This yarn is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. Some people will fit 400 grams of yarn in these pans, but yeah, I think that 300 is a comfortable amount for me. Now, how much water should we add? Let's start with a liter, because the measuring cup I'm using today, I'm gonna add another liter of water. This is the same water that I used in the pre-soak. And the reason for this is that I'm gonna want these colors to move through. I don't know, gosh, am I gonna be flipping things? I didn't even think about that. I guess I'm just gonna really be injecting the dye using, I think I'm gonna use my turkey baster. I'm gonna inject it so it should go all the way through, but having some liquid in here will help things spread out a bit. Goodness, clearly I know exactly what I'm doing today, but it is fun to try new things. I think a lot of bigger dyers who dye more volume, I don't know if they use, say, a turkey baster, but I think that they probably do something somewhat similar to this with, you know, injecting so that way maybe it goes more to the other side. I think that they do stuff like this because a lot of people will use like a warming drawer, which allows you to warm up and heat multiple pans at the same time. That process is overall slower than, say, heating it on the stovetop. It takes longer to heat up, but I think that the perk is that you can then do multiple pans at the same time. And so I'm making a real effort. Oh goodness, and hopefully I'm not using all the dye all at once, but I'm trying to inject it. And I am going to help. I'm now using my gloved fingers to apply this through the yarn, and everything is cool. We still have no acid in here. I actually like that we're getting this little bit of like deeper pink to lighter pink halo. I think that that is cool. Okay, because normally I flip and there is some less saturated color down there, so maybe, I don't know. This is so different, and okay, I need to go wipe off my hands. But I think that this is pretty fun. I don't think I want to use all the dye right away. And really, I'm trying to go in and get some of this color on the bottom layer. You can see that some things are striking on the faster side, but gosh, this is fun. I am not rinsing the turkey baster as I move between different colors, and that is because the amount of color that's left on there is so much less than the total amount of color that I'm adding, so I don't think it's a problem. And plus, like, I'm going from pink to purple to blue to green, so I think that that helps. I would like to take this opportunity to give a huge shout out to Dorothy Young, Karen Siegel, and the rest of the Fiber patrons. You'll see some of their names going across the screen right now. Patreon is a great platform to support content creators you really enjoy. I offer patrons behind the scenes sneak peeks. They get to vote in some of the direction content takes, and there's some other cool perks like permanent Etsy coupons and more. You can find more information about the Patreon in the video description. And for those curious what Dyepot PS means, PS both stands for Postscript and Patreon Special. This is sort of a complimentary series to Dyepot Weekly, and so yeah, it's got that double meaning. You might notice that when I added the purple, I didn't add it all the way up to the border between the two colors. And that, oh, this is pretty good actually. And that was because I wanted to give some space to let things have some spread. And I am gonna, I think, keep some color in reserve because we'll heat this up and we will flip and we can add other color to the other side. There's no reason why I have to say, oh, I can't flip, but I think that this might be the way. And of course, like right now, like, oh, I want some more color right there. I'm gonna add more color right there. So you can just spot correct right now. There's no reason why you have to wait. I will say that this baster is great for many things. Spot checking is not the best at, but you know, it's working. I have to say, so far I am thrilled with these colors. I'm a little bit more worried about the blue. Actually, that's pretty good. The reason why I'm worried about the blue is that the frozen and I think violet are both less pigmented compared to a lot of these other colors that we're working with today. And I did notice some splotches in with that violet. So, you know, we might get some splotches on the yarn, but you know, it is what it is. I'm also worried a bit about avocado because it is a very, very temperamental color. And when I say it's temperamental, I mean it is very, very temperamental. It might turn brown, but I think that it will still be great for our inspiration. So I think that if I had gone straight for, say, like a peacock blue or something like that, we could get more saturation going on here. But honestly, it's not bad. I mean, it could be deeper for sure. And I can add more dye, but I can also do that towards the end. So I have to say, I am a fan. This could be, wow, what was I missing, guys? Clearly I should have been doing this all along. This has so much less pressure to it because as I'm adding these colors, I'm not freaking out that they're gonna strike and then I need to move it and oh no, I waited too long and now I'm gonna need to flip 10 million times. Clearly there's some techniques that work great. Oh, I should be injecting. There are some techniques that work great for a home dyer who dyes mostly for themselves or who dyes in small batches that just don't work for people who dye at a much bigger scale. And a lot of the techniques I do, I cannot dye hundreds in that colorway. It's just not gonna work. But this is something that is faster than hand painting on the countertop. So it does have some speed, oh dear, some speed to it. Since I did that there, I'm gonna let that green maybe go over on the blue a little bit more on those other areas. But yeah, I mean, this is going great. I think we've got a winner here. Like, this is something that I feel that I could scale up. Now, I'm very messy right now, but I think that with time, I could definitely improve this so that way I get like this deep saturated colors I really want. I think the colors are even a little bit blown out. At this point, I'm going to turn on the heat so we can start heating things up. There is no acid yet, and I'm going to add the acid soon. I probably could have let this sit for a little while, and I didn't. I think it's okay. I really do think it's okay. I know there's a lot of dyers out there who also will hand paint like I might on the countertop, but then they leave things to sit for 24 hours, let the color slowly set in a la the cool vat kind of technique. They add acid at some point, obviously, and then they will heat it in a dedicated microwave, and that's another way to scale up. When you have one heat source or limited heat sources, you need to bring in some creativity. And I think that for me, if I were to attempt to scale up and ever do 100 of one colorway, maybe that's a challenge that I should do at some point, I don't know. But if I were to do that, I would probably be inclined to do some kind of cool vat and then buy a dedicated microwave to set that color once things have already set somewhat. Okay, but we're heating up pretty fast. I mean, I barely weighted anything and I'm seeing movement. I'm reducing the heat, and you know what? We're gonna add acid now because that is what I want to do. I'm honestly not sure the best way to go about this, but I'm gonna try trickling on a tablespoon onto each of these more central points, and clearly this is not going into the center. And oh, you can see some breaking happening with that green a little bit, some of that avocado coming through. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon to either end. So that's 5 tablespoons. That is a fair amount of acid already. Avocado, you've got me worried. Separating. It is a finicky color, and it looks, you know, like that pretty teal, but I knew that that isn't going to be exactly what stays, but we will add more color as needed. And that brown, again, that's gemstone-ish, okay? Oh dear. But yeah, heat can definitely shift the hues of some colors, and I knew the risks of what I was getting into when I grabbed that avocado. So I'm not sure if this is spreading some of that acid. The acid will spread slowly. I'm expecting this to take longer than it might otherwise, but now I am just, I guess, going to slowly heat things, keeping an eye on the water level and trying not to touch it too much. But there is a reasonable amount of liquid in here. I definitely get questions sometimes about why I don't cover, and covering your steam pan is a great way to keep the heat in and to keep things trapped. And you know what? Let's do it. This is going to make it a little harder for me to check in, but that end was hot, so definitely be careful. But by adding some tin foil over the top, I can trap some of the heat in a little bit better. And yeah, let's go ahead and wait 15 minutes. 15 minutes later. I forgot if I said this already, but you can buy covers to these pans. I just haven't. And the nice thing about tinfoil is it doesn't retain heat, so that is nice. And ooh, that's good. I mean, I did add plenty of acid. We've still got some pink, but we're starting to see some colors clear, so that is good. Sometimes things will need a little bit of a poke. That's really, really good. This is so pretty. Okay, yeah, there's some not bleeding, but there's some residual color. I'm just trying to, sometimes some movement will help the rest of that color absorb. And also it helps distribute the acid in here as well. Okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and let this sit for another 15 minutes, just to be very, very cautious before I flip it. But I'll cover it back up and we'll come back in 15 more minutes. All right, let's remove our foil and see how beautiful and steamy we are. We are on low, and I think, man, guys, I am so happy. Sorry, I don't want to yell, but I am so happy right now. All right, we're gonna go for this, and we are gonna flip the yarn. Oh shoot, there's a little color. Actually, that's not very much. Ah! Okay, we definitely have to flip. I mean, we were always going to flip, but this like went inside this other skein though, so we kind of, we were always going to flip, but now we can see where we messed up. But overall, this is really, really good. We definitely need to add some more color here, but these results are significantly better than if I had it hot with acid and then just added the yarn. I mean, clearly I see areas where I want more color and we're gonna go and add more, but yeah, this is great because we're starting with more penetration of color. This time, rather than coming in with the turkey baster, I am coming in with a syringe to have a bit more control here. I really just want to add this color where I want it to go, and I don't want to accidentally like spread things too far. But with the amount of acid that's in here now, we also know things are going to spread faster now because things are hot. There's acid in here. So I think that this should help. And this feels a lot more like what I am used to with this kind of dyeing. The risk here is that things aren't lined up quite as nicely as they were previously. So that just like me adding pink into that purple section. So there will be differences between these skeins. I haven't nailed the technique yet, but I mean, I hope to improve with time. And you can bet that I will be doing this more in the future. Because I think most of the light patches that we had remaining were based on this area that we see. I mean, we'll definitely move things again to check. Oh, it's not that hot. And hey, it's good we did move down there, yarn. I do want to make sure I save. And again, the blue is the color that I was always the most worried about, just in terms of potency. Okay, and I'm back to the turkey baster for some of this green. I feel like a lot of it is fairly superficial anyway. Okay, adding more of that, and then I am going to attempt to squish it in. This yarn is superwash, so I'm not worried about felting, but even if it were non-superwash, a little bit of pressing is fine. Okay, I'm gonna cover this and let this sit for, I guess 15 minutes. Okay, let's check. Oh, ripped the tin foil. Oh well. Let's check on this. It is looking really clear. I am really liking the tone of the blue. If I had planned this out and was mixing colors directly for it, I probably would have picked another green. I think at the pink end things are fine, but I do need some more blue and green here. So it is okay to move and check. on your colors. Whoop. Nope, we're just doing the best that we can. Yeah, so the blue is not quite as deep as I normally would have preferred. And again, the green is not perfect, but I think that we've got a beautiful, beautiful colorway here. Just allowing this dye to go in, to be really deep and saturated. And maybe a tiny bit more pink up there. But overall, I'd say that we're pretty good. I think that that is pretty good. And there's nothing wrong with spot checking or not spot checking. I think that all is good. Okay. I am now going to let this sit, I guess, for another 15 minutes. I think initially I thought that this was going to speed things up completely for me, and it certainly has removed stress. So I will go for this again. The colors still didn't spread very much between the different colors by adding it cool. So I think that this works well. I just need to practice a bit on some of those transitional areas and realize that the spread I see on the top might not be happening in the center. But anyway, we'll be back. All right, at this point, I'm not even checking, I'm considering the colorway done. The nice thing is that, let's just remove the tin foil for now. The nice thing is that if you aren't happy with your colorway and you find spots later on that you wish had more pigment, you can always dye it again. Even if it's washed and dried, you can go through the process and add more color. So you don't have to be done even if you decide you're done at one point. Now, for sure, there are the blues are probably different sizes. These aren't identical, but nevertheless, I'm happy. So what I'm going to do now is turn off the heat and I'm going to place this cover back on and just let this cool slowly so we can absorb the rest of the color. Finding white spots after you've dyed your yarn can be a huge level of frustration. And the biggest advice that I can give is to check your yarn, move it and check it, move it and check it. Because there could be spots that you missed because you can only see what is on the surface. And again, as I said, if you don't like the color at the end or there's a spot you missed, you can correct it. You can even correct just that spot and add a little more dye even after it's washed and dried. Or honestly, if you buy someone else's yarn and there's a spot you don't like, you can over dye that yourself as well. My point is, there isn't a wrong number of checks or flips for you to do. It really is just that if you want to avoid, I guess, a little paler color around the ties, know to focus around the ties more when you're starting, but you can also just check around them while you're in the dye pot or go around for a second round later on. As you know, I am constantly modifying my techniques, trying to improve my abilities. And taking those chances and trying something a little bit different from the way you've always done something is a great way to not only learn and grow, but potentially improve. Now, some of the new things I try, I don't always love, and I don't always want that to be my new normal, but sometimes it is better than what I was doing before. And yeah, each time I film one of these videos, I learn so much. So if you enjoy this, please make sure you are subscribed to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel. Publish at least 2 new videos every week. And with your notifications on, then hopefully you won't miss a thing. And don't worry about any of the leftover dye. I don't like to leave any dye behind. And a lot of these colors are going to go to other projects. That's as much of a sneak peek as I'm going to give you though. The dye bath is completely clear and we're now ready to wash our yarn. This is beautiful. It feels a little bit like a macaw. I am so excited. I might see a hair of some pigment, and there are some spots that definitely could be darker, but as I said, you can go through and add more, and overall I am really happy with this technique. I'm now adding some clear dish soap, and fingers crossed we will not see any bleeding. Hooray! So now I am going to need to rinse out the soap, rinse this a couple more times, put the yarn through my spin dryer, and then hang it up to dry. But how is this for some deep, saturated jewel tones? I'm thrilled. Here is the finished dry yarn. My technique still definitely needs a bit of work, but I am so happy that I tried this. I think I need to just be better at injecting the color towards the bottom so we start off with better coverage, because as soon as I move the yarn, then the evenness of the color sections doesn't really exist in the same way anymore. You can see that although these are all technically the same colorway, this one has larger blue, this is bigger purple, this actually might have bigger pink. So there are some differences between each of them. So if you were going to incorporate them all in one project, I do recommend alternating skeins, because it could be obvious if you were just to abruptly switch from one to another. But I'm so happy with this colorway. I've already gone over the avocado, and so we do have some bits of rust. Think of it like the avocado pits, or the natural variation that there is in that color. It is a little bit tricky, but I still think that it works for using some saturated jewel tones. Again, and I already covered this, but the blue could be deeper, but I was working with what I have, and by doing this and using up some older dye stocks, I'm making space so that way I can store new stocks in the future. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I want to thank you all for coming on this journey with me as I learn different techniques and take risks and try to continually improve the way I do things. I think that any dyer, no matter how established or how many skeins of yarn they've dyed, can continue to learn new things and refine techniques. And I really hope you appreciate my willingness to do these trials on camera. So if you aren't already, please subscribe to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel. I publish at least 2 new videos every single week and share my successes and failures. And I think we all learn a lot along the way. If you've been a ChemKnits fan for a while and you want another way to support the channel, please go and check out the ChemKnits Patreon. You can find more details in the listing, which the link will be linked in the video description and up in the iCard in the top right hand corner of your screen. I really love this colorway we created today. It feels very summer, very foliage, very blossomed, very floral to me. I like the vibrancy. It makes me feel happy looking at these colors, and well, I hope you guys really enjoy it too. Reflecting on this project, I also really enjoyed mixing the colors without measuring really closely, mixing and using the jars to help me get a sense of how much pigment I had mixed of each color. I think that was a really nice way to do this, to make sure that I had enough of each color mixed. Instead of diluting them in water from the beginning, I mixed them and then added the water to make it easier to apply. I definitely want to do that more in the future. What color combinations do you think I should try with this technique? Please let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.